moratorium on the application for development permits for data centers in the city of Mount Vernon. We drafted that ordinance. It's before you in committee to review. I'll just go briefly on process and talk about what it does. So procedurally, the city can adopt moratoriums to the development of property. Our authority actually is in two different statutes. In order to do that, you need to have a majority of the council plus one adopt the ordinance, because you are exercising emergency powers. It would be effective immediately, and under the statutes that grant you specific authority to put a moratorium on development applications, you must hold a hearing within 60 days of the moratorium and allow public comment as to your legislative action. It is a 6-month duration. You can renew it. You would have to have another hearing prior to renewal. You can adopt it up to 1 year with a work plan. This one would be of the 6-month variety. Before you was an ordinance with a lot of recitals. Recitals here set forth both the authority and the factual findings that show the impacts to data centers potentially. We're not here to fully adjudicate what those impacts are, where you should zone for it. What it's done is to identify these potential impacts. If they're not addressed in code, we want to have time to make a study and deliberate on how you would address that in the land use code. Another thing that was noteworthy is the definition of data center that would not be allowed here is similarly defined to that of the county. Emma Connor, who just passed theirs in late July, in terms of the megawatts and the square footage. So it'd be consistent if that's what you're looking for amongst those jurisdictions that I'm aware of that have already previously adopted a moratorium on data centers. And we could take action as soon as your next regular meeting.
Question. Kevin, I have a question. Right now with our zoning, our current zoning, where would a data center be allowed? In industrial?
It's speculative because I don't know until an application comes in, but your most intense use is your industrial zones. Data centers are all not the same. There's a lot of noise going on data centers. What is a data center? Is it 2,000 square feet? Is it 2 megawatts? Is it 100 megawatts? So all of those would factor into the use, whether it's a permitted use in your zoning code or conditional use. But generally speaking, industrial is your most intense use, which means the most intense industrial usage, the most impactful uses are zoned there. You have your least intense is your single family residential, certainly. It would probably be harder to zone something in there. And then everything in between. Things that you need to be very mindful of based on research is not only that there's a use of energy, but there's a use of water, and that water then needs to be, once it's being used, it may be polluted, it needs to be dealt with. You have significant stormwater environmental concerns and regulations, and it may or may not have to, we don't know what the answer to this question is, go into a wastewater treatment plant, and that would be capacity otherwise reserved to what you're trying to address, which is housing. And these are significant issues you'll want to address. Doesn't mean you can't address it, there are ways to do it. Fees, impacts, you have to upgrade your facilities, but you want to address those things.
Any other questions, comments? Yes.
I just want to thank you for doing the research and work on this. I think we should do a moratorium, and I'm happy to discuss it or vote on it or whatever whenever council's ready.
Yes.
Yeah, I will echo what Hannah is saying. I just was reading an article today that the federal government is kind of moving in the direction of data centers, and so I really want to learn more. I want to know what the impacts are. I know Andrew has spoke about revenue generation and tax generation, and so I want to talk about that. I want to know specifically what it's going to do to our wastewater treatment plant and the environment. And so, yeah, if we can move this along, I'm all for it.
Okay, good.
Well, if we would like, we can put this on next week. Regular meeting.
I would
would we, allow for public comment on this, or would we have a special public comment?
Because this, Kevin will correct me, but I think because this is a moratorium, we put it in place first, and then we invite public comment that informs our process.
So for this particular action, you have to have a public comment within 60 days. This is an emergency ordinance. We used to be in I'm gonna hedge because I haven't looked at the law lately. We're in the minority of the United States where you are an application vested state. So you just have to apply for it, and then you're vested to the right to develop. So you put in the ordinance, then you have the hearing. Now, the Open Public Meeting Act laws have changed, so you have to have public comment anytime you take final action, so it's kind of, you allow it anyway. For this particular item, we'll have a hearing anyway, 60 days.
Yes, Andrew.
Just so everybody knows, I'll be a no, but I don't care that much, so whatever you guys wanna do is cool. Just so it's not a surprise.
Thanks, Andrew.
Got a quick question. So, Kevin, is the 2,000 square feet, is that the built area? Is that considered like the interior space?
The facility exceeds 2,000 square feet, then it would trigger the moratorium, the facility, is how we define it. So if you had an application and your facility had either within a building or individual building, 2,000 square feet that's serving as a data center, that would trigger this moratorium to deny the application. That's how I would interpret the law. Now, as we go through, if we want to make changes and refinements, we can. If there's ambiguity, that's the nature of emergency ordinances, is that you cannot foresee all potential ways to interpret it. You may, through your study or further knowledge, amend your ordinance. You certainly have the right to do that. I remember marijuana regulations that were amended, as we learned, on multiple occasions.
Any other questions, comments?
But yeah, just verbatim, if it requires a structure which exceeds 2,000 square feet, that's the actual language we would interpret.
The structure.
A structure, yeah.
Carrie, are we okay for getting this on next week? Sorry, okay.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Kevin.
The recording?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll ask Candy to come up. She put some of this information together. So, just as a reminder, there were some requests for some sort of recording, audio, video, both for committee meetings. And so Candy gave you those options, and she's here to answer any questions that you have about those options, and maybe you could present them to us first, if you're prepared for that, Candy.
Yeah, I can present them. So we kind of gave 4 different options of varying levels. My recommendation, just in advance, is option 2, where we record it minimally, and then play it afterwards on our broadcast channels and have it on YouTube. But I also included options for complete live video recording, the same as we do for City Council, recording audio only, and maybe posting it on the website. I do need to check that we have the technical capabilities on our website to do that, which is, I'm waiting for someone to get back from vacation before I can give you a final answer on that one. And then, or recording our audio and then just releasing it if someone requests it.
Candy, I'll ask the first question if I could.
Yeah.
It seems counterintuitive that video might be easier than just audio only. So
Yes. So part of that is what the requirements are for looking over things. So with captions, we have a great AI captioning system that captions it, and it costs, we pay per the hour to do that. We caption in both English and Spanish. When you have an audio recording, you need to have a complete transcript, and those are a lot harder to put together. If we take our captions and do that, then we still have to spend the time formatting it in a way that people want to read. Because when our captions come in, they are not formatted in a way that are easy to read at all. So putting that together is what takes the extra time. That and reviewing it.
Question, yes.
Okay, so Candy, I'm looking at option 2,
Yes.
and I just want to. I'm thinking about the cost at this point.
Mhm.
So currently, it's last year you spent 108 staff hours,
Correct.
and this option 2 would be 120 staff hours
Correct.
because of the. And then the captions. Is that not anything that you had last year's bill? I'm just trying to make sure I'm understanding
So
that's gonna
that
be
is the
additional.
cost for captions just for the committee meetings.
Okay.
That does not include the cost for all of our city council meetings.
And
And that's the same with the hours, so that is just,
that's an annual fee.
what was that?
That's an annual fee, $785.
That is an estimated amount based on the number of hours we have done in the past year.
Okay.
Well, the past 2 years. We have averaged around 60 hours of committee meetings. Now, if you guys decide to start meeting double the amount of time and go late into the evening, we would pay more, so.
So what's the, if we were just using these numbers, what would the impact be to your budget, dollar wise? Did you figure that out by any chance?
Well, yes and no. So it's not a completely significant one, but at the city, we're cutting.
I know.
Costs
that's what
everywhere,
I'm
so-
trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Because I know it's a financial impact then to your budget, where you've already probably been asked to cut your budget.
Yes,
So
so
I'm
it
just
would, we are, part of my budget is funded by, revenue from our franchise, which, basically Comcast pays us money for having our broadcast channels.
Okay.
The other part is funded by the general fund.
Yeah.
And our revenue from Comcast is going down year after year, and so we're being supplemented more and more by the general fund.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, we're always looking for ways to fill that amount, so.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Yes, yeah.
Thanks for putting all this together.
Yeah.
It's really good to see all of this. I think we should really be prioritizing the accessibility of our meetings. I really like option 2, video recording, with captions. I think that sounds really good to me, and I think that as a council, when we're doing the budget, we just really need to make sure that we're prioritizing accessibility of our meetings and also of everything else that the city does. And just make sure that we're able to give you the funds to be able to do this for the community.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
We have a number of competing priorities right now. I'm not suggesting that I'm against this either way. It is a budget question, and so I think we need to go through this, through the budget process. However, there is no requirement that any of us attend committee meetings. Most of us generally happen to. Some of us find more benefit by attending committee meetings, and some of us find more benefit in a direct reach out to staff. And what I'm wondering is, there are many other committee meetings that we attend. I'm thinking about when I served on the Voting Rights Committee. I'm thinking about when I served on the Fireworks Committee. I think that we need to be all-inclusive. Is this all of our committee meetings? Are we talking about only Wednesday night? Why only Wednesday night? Because other people may want to know what's going on, if we have a voting rights that pops up again. So I just think we need to make sure that, we capture it all. For me, the greater priority for me, because we have so many competing priorities, is we need to have an interpreter here on Wednesday nights during our council meetings, specifically a Spanish interpreter, so that that community feels like they are part of our community. And Mary and Demi and I met with them on Saturday morning. Thank you very much. I'm old. And so I learned a lot, and there were some things that I thought the city was doing and were not doing, and we don't know what we don't know. And so that for me is the greater priority. I want in our council budget next year, I want at minimum, I think that the city can do at minimum a 2-hour contract for a Spanish interpreter. That will also mean that we will need, what do we call them?
Headsets.
Headsets, thank you very much. That we will need headsets, because I'm assuming that the headsets that we used are actually not city, but they might be from, they were from the school district. So, we need to have some of those. And so, all sorts of competing priorities, and as Candy states, we are, in a budget crunch, and we will be for a number of years. Also, what's the expectation when we want to hold a committee meeting in the room next door? That does not allow for video. I took a lot of benefit over having our meeting last week in that room, because I know we tried sitting down here. It was frustrating for me because I was still going back and forth based on how we were sitting. And so, what happens if we decide we're gonna have a meeting over there, and are people gonna be upset because why are you meeting over there? So I think there's a lot for us to consider. In a nutshell, that's what I'm trying to say.
Thank you. I would like to correct one thing. We do have the ability to film in the other room. We did not for a very long time. And part of our move earlier this year was we replaced the cameras that were very old, and so we replaced the cameras that were in this room, and we removed all the cameras that were still working to the other room. And so for as long as those are lasting, that's the plan, is to keep replacing these ones and moving them over, replace these ones, move them over.
So fingers crossed, it might be a little bit.
They should last for another couple of years.
Yes.
Well, I agree with Melissa that we should have interpreters here. We should have had them here the entire time. So 100% agree, support. I think our meetings need to be accessible in every way, and I know that you all met with a group on Saturday, and a lot of those folks and a lot of other folks in the community, they want to be involved and they want to have a translator, but also they don't feel comfortable coming here in person. So I think having these videos accessible to the community is very connected with that same accessibility need here. And I think specifically for these committees that I have, the reason why at least I personally want them recorded is because we're the final decision makers on a lot of this stuff. And I know there's other committees where a lot of things are discussed, and those are also important. And if folks want those recorded, fully support that as well. But at least for these ones, because in our actual council meetings, a lot of times we're just voting and we're like going kind of quick, and the community doesn't get to see all the wonderful presentations that we get to see. They don't get to see the information, they're not here. And I think allowing the public to see those presentations, get the same information that we are receiving, and even just like hearing the questions that we're asking and like what we're concerned about, what we're thinking about, I think that that's really important. Instead of the community just seeing us quickly voting on everything that we've already been discussing for months in other locations.
Yes, ma'am.
I have been against this for a long time, and it's just my personal feeling. I feel like we have a much more robust conversation if we're not being recorded. I think we ask a lot more hard questions if we're not being recorded. But that's really honestly just my opinion and my feeling. Whatever the majority obviously works for me. I think we have to be, and I hear exactly what you both are saying. I I understand the value of recording and having the interpreter. We have to be very cognizant of what we're spending. And we're not gonna be able to get to this point until budget season, and then we have to also then think about what we don't want to fund. There's gonna be a lot of competing, priorities, and what are we going to, this is what we have to pay for, and this is what we want to pay for, and this is what we feel like we should pay for. There's going to be a lot of decisions that we're gonna have to make as a council that are going to be impactful to a lot of people. I don't know what an interpreter costs for a couple hours. If we're gonna have an interpreter here from 6 to 8, I mean, our council member meetings are rarely over by 8. So is that beneficial? Do we need to have a different contract? These are just questions I'm thinking of. So that's gonna be a pretty, significant financial, hit. So we just have to keep that in mind. I'm not saying these aren't great ideas. I'm just saying, we are the people that control the funding, and we have to be very cognizant of what we're spending and where we're spending it. What are we willing to not do, in order for this to happen? We have to think about that and the whole thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks. I would say that, so we looked at this a 3 years ago. We talked about it just internally, having someone here all the time for full-time interpretation. What we settled on was for the first time having a by request. And so I also visited the Colchian group several times. We explained this is an option. That's on our website. If we want to step that up and have a full-time interpreter here, we're looking into costs for that, current costs for that. So it was just a cost-saving measure before we decided to do it by request. But
Yes.
Oh, go ahead. You go first. Actually 2 questions. So let me understand this. You're saying on number 2 is the best option. Is that for translation purposes? Like, I guess what's the best way, like if we're gonna have this translated, what is the best option?
So when I say
Whether it's video or audio, I guess that's what I want to know.
So when I say it's the best option for us, it is because it barring not recording at all, it is the least amount of additional staff hours.
Okay.
Is why it's there. Now,
Okay.
once we record, we need to provide captions for it. That's one of the requirements for our video recordings.
Okay.
And so this would cover the cost for an AI to do English and Spanish translations
At the same time.
at the same time.
Okay, so that would kind of cover it both
Yes.
that way. Okay. And then my second thing was, as far as a translator, we did discuss a few things on Saturday, but, and this was brought up, that volunteer people would also, some of the younger generation stuff would also volunteer to come to, meetings and interpret.
that would be
So maybe we could work with something, so if, you know, we only can afford this, then maybe we could reach out to them and, you know, I mean, maybe we can
That'd be
meet
awesome.
each other halfway or something,
Mhm.
like, so we can try to work something out that way.
I will just say that I love the idea of volunteers, and it would be really wonderful. I think we would just need to make sure that people know that they are not licensed translators, because
Oh.
there is, you know, did we interpret something correctly at a
Right.
government meeting?
Okay, yeah, well, we'd have to have some sort of waiver, I would assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Or,
Assuming that
like,
is-
I'm assuming
I haven't
waiver or something.
reviewed the legal standard for interpreting a legislative meeting. I'm very familiar as a pro tem judge in Cedar Woolley and a prosecutor that if it was in a court of law, there are very strict standards.
Okay.
The interpreters need to have breaks, because it's very important you get what is said absolutely correct, especially in a courtroom with people's rights and, you know, liberties at stake.
Okay.
I can do the research on whether or not that similar standard would apply or another standard would apply. I don't have an answer today.
Okay.
I can tell you if you have a live interpreter, because I've done trials, I've presided over trials. It's important that the people know what's going on. Things will be slower because you have to give them time to.
Yeah.
So when I talk, they'll talk, and then I'll talk again, because you gotta be aware.
Mm-hmm,
You don't want them to miss anything, and the interpreter
mm-hmm.
is trying to keep up with you. Same with when you're, you
Yeah.
know, I think Melissa knows when people are typing. I used to be a fast talker, and I'm It's looking, see if the interpreter or the court reporter is going,
Yeah, we did that on
that's
Saturday.
something you have to deal with.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Kevin kind of brought up a little bit what I wanted to address also is, and Demi did as well, things that we need to consider, like, so from my court perspective, interpreters have to be court certified, and they go through the state for that certification. And way back in the day when we used to have, we have a standing interpreter on the Thursday felony criminal calendar. And back in the day, you had one interpreter, and the idea of breaks was not, they just kept going. And nowadays, it's every 15 minutes, and sometimes, like with ASL interpreters, it is a requirement that you have two, and they have to go back and forth. And so these are things that we need to talk about. Demi spoke to the potential of having someone from that community come in, which is something that we need to consider. But also something I think we should think about is, does the city give a stipend for hiring a bilingual employee? And is there a possibility of some sort of a flex work schedule where that employee on Wednesday nights, similar like department heads, are here? Just trying to think outside the box with all
I
this
can
stuff.
answer that real quick.
Hold on.
No.
Or potentially the high school, right? I mean, we've got some fabulous high school children that are, or kids, they're not children because they're in high school now they're teenagers. And is there some sort of a program that, they might be willing to help out? And also, what we do know is that the school district has a Spanish speaker at their, so, reach out to them. What is the school? Because I'm sure, we don't need to reinvent the wheel here, right? We just need to see what works and try to perfect it. And yes, there is a huge financial cost, which I think is important to start this now so that as we go through the process. So that's all I have. I'll shut up.
She asked me a question.
Okay.
In 2024, when I implemented the language, the interpretation option for council meetings, I also implemented a language premium for staff. So that's a yes.
Excellent.
And if you're bilingual, you get a pay bump. And are they qualified or certified to interpret? That's the question. So, right? So there's a difference there.
Correct.
But we could screen for that as well. And that's what our plan is when there's a request.
Yeah, I just want to say I would be a lot more comfortable if we had an interpreter who was certified, who wasn't a volunteer, who was like staff or contracted with the city. I also want to say the school district does have some amazing interpreters. The school board meetings are also Wednesday nights, so they might be taken. So just wanted to
We just gotta schedule in advance.
yeah.
We split them up.
I have a question for you, Mayor. What do other councils around the state do when it comes to recording committee meetings, whatever that is? What do they do? And I understand that there is a request that was brought to us to have this done, and we're considering what this means potentially to our budget. And I think we should also consider what is our legal obligation according to the state, like, and all of those questions. What do other city councils do?
Well, I think countywide, so for Skagit County, I don't know of many cities that have video recording. I think that Cedar Woolley does. I don't think Burlington does. As far as language and interpretation, I haven't searched all their sites, but I don't believe they offer that. City of Bellingham offers interpretation ongoing. City of Seattle has a policy sort of like ours, where 2 days before, you make your request 2 days before, and they bring that interpreter. As far as filming and recording and legal obligations, I don't believe there are any legal obligations to record.
There is the Open Public Meetings Act by the state legislature requires you to take minutes, open it up to the public, provide an opportunity for public comment upon final action. If it's a regular meeting, you adopt that schedule in your ordinance. If it's a special meeting, you give notice 24 hours. But there's no legal requirement to take a video or audio recording or transcript yet. It's up to you though.
The county probably records the most meetings out of everyone here, and even they pick and choose, so not all their meetings are recorded.
None of their budget meetings are recorded,
Yeah.
which is shocking to me.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. The mayor.
Lots to consider.
I
Thank
do,
you, Ken.
sorry. This is an action item for us. I have no idea where anybody's going, and we haven't discussed whether or not this is going to be on a council meeting agenda. Can we please at least confirm whether or not we're interested in doing that?
So I heard two different issues, in interpreting and recording. And
We only
not-
have one issue presented to us tonight. The interpretation is a completely separate thing. But if you want to bring that up as a separate thing, that's totally fine, but there is an action item in front of us.
So my understanding is that we were gonna talk about this through the budget process to determine if we have the funding to do it. That was what I was thinking, but.
Oh, okay, that was not made clear to me, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, is that what everybody else wants to do?
I think that's the only choice for us, because where are we gonna get the money?
Oh, I mean, it's it doesn't seem like a ton of money, but that's totally understood.
It still impacts the budget that's already been approved, so for the year, if we wanted to do it now, so moving forward, I think, I agree, I think it needs to be part of our budget discussion. When Candy presents her budget, you know, she can ask for whatever, she can go for the moon.
Yeah.
And then it can be discussed.
Not to be rude about it, but we do use vacancy savings for lots of things where we don't talk about it like this, and so we're making that choice not to do that, and that's totally fine. I just don't want to pretend like that's not what's happening.
So,
I'm not sure I understand where you're going with that, to be honest.
Oh, we're gonna hire a consultant to do like a retreat. That's not going through any sort of budgeting process, and that's fine. But I just want to acknowledge that we have other mechanisms in order to do things.
I hear you. Something that just came up that we all are very much aware of is what in the heck is going on at Little Mountain. And, you know, that's not budgeted either, but we've got a community and certainly, I mean, I want to do whatever we can to save that plot of land. And so it's just that we have so many competing priorities, and it might seem like it's only, you know, $4,000 here, but all of that adds up. And so for me, it was just what we have done, you know, for the last 9 years is city staff through the budgeting process first bring their pie in the sky to the mayor. The mayor goes through and kind of does whatever, we meet forever with Doug, and then the presentations come to us where we can now say, okay, yes and no to this, or no, you know, what can we do? So that's where I was coming from.
That totally makes sense. There was just a lot of ambiguity and not a ton of direct communication, and I just wanted to know where we were at very directly. Sorry if I'm coming off as aggressive.
Not at all.
I've
Not
just
at all.
been
Great
listening
question.
to the discussion, which is super great. Didn't have any outcome, and so I got frustrated. So my apologies. Thank you for the clarity.
I've also been listening, and I've heard a single opinion on the options. To your point, I think, Andrew, I just, and so it would help me to have, I don't wanna vote right now because we can't. It would help me to have some idea, is this something that we want to do immediately? Do we wanna look at it through the budget process? And if we wanna look at it through the budget process, which of the 4 options do we wanna look at?
Sure, I'll start if that's okay on the board, just really quickly. Yeah, whatever Candy thinks, I'm just gonna go with her. I trust her opinion on it. If it's for transparency reasons, like if somebody's saying like, I want you to be more transparent, I'm always going to vote in favor of that. Doesn't really matter. This seems like a low budget cost, so I would be in favor. I'd be happy to move forward with it immediately. I don't think it's an emergency, but whatever Candy thinks, I'd be down with.
Yes, sir.
I agree with Andrew, and obviously Doug's not here, so I'll ask the mayor. Do we have funds in the budget that we could use for this, for at least the rest of the year?
We could cover 785.
Then 100%, I don't know why we wouldn't do this. To me, if we don't, because we've received a lot of requests, we've had people come to the meetings and tell us, I think if we don't do this, it's just saying to the community that we don't care, that they can't see what we're doing. And to me, that feels bad. So I fully support it. I think we should just immediately fund it and get it started.
And when I say we could cover 785, that's, void of any other requests. So aside from Little Mountain and a facilitator, all of those things, I think the point was made that 785 isn't a significant percentage of our annual budget. And for that reason, I think that we could probably cover it.
And, yes, Melissa.
I was just gonna say, I trust what Candy is saying 100%, and if the best way to do this is number two, then I'm all for number two. And if you're telling me it's only $785 for the remainder of the year, or prorated because we're into August, then I am with Andrew and Hannah, and let's give it a try. But I will go back and say, okay, let's just remember, what about all of our other committee meetings? Because we're leaving those out, and those are very good questions that people could come to us. Are we prepared for any committee meeting that we have, whether it's on a Wednesday night, in the middle of the day, or on some other evening, to record those? Because how do you justify one and not the others?
Yes, Hannah.
I agree with Candy also. I'm gonna go with what you think, even though I'm not excited about it, but it's fine. I don't wanna be recorded all the time, but that's okay. But my other worry is, and Andrew brought it up too, is that I know this isn't not part of that, but is the translation. Is figuring out a budget to have a translator here, and hoping that we can somehow put this on the agenda and get it going right away. Is that we have one here, or how we have to figure that out budget wise, or how we pull that all together. And then obviously pulling this all into when we go into the budget. But I do think it's important. We've heard from many different parts of our community, but I do think that we honor not just one area, but also another area that they want to be heard too. So,
Mary.
I do think that we already have an option for people to get a translator, and if we could say to them, please use this option through the end of the year until we go through our budget process. I don't think that that's an awful hardship, because it's already there. It's already an option that they could say, yes, I'd like a translator, and we can make that happen with a 2-day notice. I think that's still already in place. So I would prefer to use that until we go through the budget and actually are gonna be able to do this moving forward. We'll come to a solid conclusion. This is what we're gonna do going forward next year. I would just, that's just my thought, is that there's already an option there. We could just ask them to be patient with us. It's there for you.
Yes, Hannah.
Mary, do you mean the same thing for the video? Like you want the
No, I'm
recording?
gonna defer. You already know that I don't like being videoed, and I'm like Demi, and I just am not, it's not my thing, but I'm one vote, so you guys have the vote. I'm not gonna even believe that.
It is terrible. I mean, it's my least favorite part of this whole thing.
100%.
Yeah, I wish that it wasn't.
You've not. I will say this just for me. I will probably ask less questions. I'm gonna try to get over that. But what happens to you after a meeting, or just how you're judged, is unfair. So.
Randy made that point last week too. Or Randy.
I would just say that I think that meeting our legal obligations is the most important thing that we could look to do to help restrain what it is that we're spending. If if there is not a, in the open meetings, if there's no requirement that you record your meetings and publish those or broadcast those, people have access to come here just like our, the people are here in the chamber tonight. And so knowing that we're going to have to cut from other areas to make this a reality is a difficult choice to say that should be a priority. Any ideas, Randy? Did you have anything on that? Did you want to have anything?
Well, at this point, I mean, prorated, it's gonna be probably, what, $400 for the rest of the year? And then a few staff hours, so, I don't, I think we're spending too much time on it, already.
I think it's been a healthy conversation, and so I appreciate us taking a little bit of time to talk about it.
Yes, Andrew.
It sounds like we might have a majority that's in favor. Would you guys want me to fill out a form to ask to have this officially on the agenda for next?
I would like you to fill the form out.
Son of a gun.
Submit it.
I don't have the form ready. I'm working on
I
that.
would say you don't.
Staff?
I would just like to say, Andrew, as far as I'm concerned, you don't need to fill
No
out a
form.
form.
Okay.
Old fashioned.
I'm sorry, I'm with the no form. Sorry.
How about this, and Kevin, help me out, but can we just start doing this next week? Why do we need to have
Oh, yeah.
this on, I mean, this is an operational issue, we don't need a vote on this, do we? Unless council wants to
No.
vote on it.
If the mayor wants to just look at the committee and act that way, there is no standing for any member of the citizen to enforce it either other way. Council could take formal action because no one individual council member has authority. And say, we will be doing this, but if the mayor wants to do that because you have operational control, then we can do it.
I feel like we've heard from the council, and for those who are opposed to this, I would say there will be the option, this will be in my proposed budget for next year as well. And there's that ability to talk it over for 2027. And this would be one of the things that you have the option of pulling from my budget, our budget, to when you're trying to balance it. So we'll start next week.
Just last thing if I may. Sometimes people will send me screenshots of my stupid face up here. And so if you want to like lobby me to try and get rid of this, I'm just saying, feel free. Like that's been really effective. So that's anything.
I mean, I think it's good, I think it's, I'm sorry. I think it's good for us to test the waters, let's try it, and if it's successful, great, and if it isn't, and we need to kinda, change course, we can certainly change course.
And we could also propose for next year bags that some of us can wear over our head that don't feel like they.
I do have one.
Yes.
The lighting right here, I'm balding on the top, and the lighting that comes down, it's horrendous on my bald spot.
Light stays on, we'll bring you powder.
I wish that we could just cover this.
We actually
But
just need
anyway, now I'm done.
I have one more thing to
Yes,
say,
well-
is I think it is important for our community to see that we can be lighthearted up here and, on very diverse topics. And for me, it's healthy, so let's give it a shot.
Thanks, Candy.
Thank you, Katie.
Poor Candy.
All right, are there any other, requests for any agenda items? Yes.
So we got a lot of public comment on the flock stuff, obviously. I would like us to, this is not flock, but I would like us to discuss possibly requiring council approval for other surveillance type of technology in the city, which is like future contracts and things.
What? Okay,
Well, we don't have to, it's not required.
I guess,
I'm just thinking out loud, I thought we already would have that contract and something that we would approve. Am I right?
No, I'm not doing anything.
Yeah, just cause obviously we did approve the flock contract, but the public wanted to know about it, and I think it would just be good practice to any type of, I don't know, surveillance or like tracking, anything like that is always council approved.
There's a separation of powers between the legislative and the executive, and you have police that have the ability to go get warrants and surveil through due process, so we have to be mindful of when you say something like that. We need to be really careful of how we set the parameters as a legislator to interfere with the executive function. I don't know how to address it at this point. We've opened up a lot of issues potentially. Surveillance is a broad word. There are legitimate surveillance that is needed for criminal law enforcement. There's a warrant requirement in an exigent circumstance. There are things that have been done traditionally. I've been a prosecutor in the 90s that have never been a Fourth Amendment issue. So, and then there's an executive function who has a strong mayor powers to operate and enforce the laws. You set laws, but the mayor enforces it. So I don't have any opinion as to this today. I can't form one, but I just want everybody to know that we all have different roles and responsibilities in government, legislative and executive. And I see a gray area here that is quickly approaching.
You got something after Councilmember Davis?
Yes.
Hannah, just to amend, maybe, I think that surveillance is going to be an ongoing discussion, and I don't know that council and the mayors, I don't know that everybody came together over this discussion, and so I think a continued discussion is probably necessary. I would be interested in continuing that discussion with like a formal agenda or like a committee or a work group or something along those lines to maybe come up with different outcomes, one of which could be something like that. But I don't know that I would I would prefer to start there if that would be okay.
Yeah, and really my intention isn't even for council to approve of these things, although that'd be great. Really my intention is just so the community is aware that we've gotten whatever contract with whatever technology.
Shortly after it was known that the city turned off flock cameras, we all got an advertisement from a company, and it's like, we heard you don't have flock, let us show you what we can do. Also ALPR. And so, are you wanting to address something like that, prevent something like that from happening, where I get an email like that and say, yeah, it's not flock, and technically they only said they didn't want flock, and so I'm going with this company. Like, is that
Yes.
at the heart of this? Okay.
Yes,
good.
and also, but it's also not even just specifically ALPRs. Like, there's a lot of different, I don't know, tracking ways. But yes, I am talking about specifically things that track just like general population, not even necessarily specifically, whatever individual things that the police department does.
Yes, Melissa.
To Kevin's point, as soon as I heard you say surveillance, my anxiety went from here to here, because for me, surveillance is not law enforcement looking at their public safety cameras that we have throughout the city, and they serve a very specific purpose. They are reactive. It is so law enforcement, when there is a horrific crime, can take a look at the film and do the best that they can to go after the perpetrator. The city of Mount Vernon and law enforcement are not sitting in a control room looking at 15 different cameras surveilling. And so I'm just letting you know, when I hear surveillance, that's what I think of. I absolutely want the 45 or whatever cameras there are in our parking garage and the library. A number of people that I know park in that parking garage because those cameras are there, because they feel safe. I get to work great this time of year, but when you're talking the middle of December and you're in downtown Mount Vernon and I'm walking up to the front steps steps of the courthouse at 5:50 in the morning, it is extremely dark, extremely dark. And so those cameras are important. So if you're talking about flock, I understand where you're coming from there. But in terms of the public safety cameras, the cameras that are being placed up through the different phases of the Colchon Trail, there are some very, very dark, I don't know if you've ever walked the Colchon Trail, but some very, very dark areas, even in midday, specifically right after you go to like Riverside Drive going east. I was very surprised the first time I went through there, and so I understand the need for these cameras. And so I don't know, I mean, I think it's good to continue to have this conversation. I'm not sure if you were just talking about specifically things like flock. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, and really it is just stuff like flock that I'm concerned about. And if you don't want to use the word surveillance, that's fine. You can use a different
Thank goodness.
word. But I mean, surveillance, the term is uncomfortable because it is uncomfortable. But yeah, if you want to use a different word, then.
Well, but it does mean different things to different people based on experience. It does. I mean, you know, there are search warrants, there are trap and trace warrants. Those are surveillance, but those are because law enforcement had probable cause to go to a judge and say, we need these. And so that, from where I'm coming from my silo of the world, that's what surveillance is.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to prevent all future contracts. My intention is just so the community knows that we're entering into these contracts. So it's not to make sure that the council votes no every single time that something like that happens. It's just so the community knows that this is happening. Because really, like, even with a flock, like, council should have had a hearing, like, should have done something more than what was initially done, so then we didn't have the whole mess a year later. But yeah, my intention is just so the community knows about it. That's it.
Any other comments, questions?
I just have to say, I don't want to rehash the whole flock thing, but city council had a very public budget process that went on for months, and the flock contract was in that budget. It was there every step of the way. And so I do feel that it was very public. I think that some members of the public didn't realize that, weren't following along, whatever, but to say that the city was not transparent and upfront about flock, I think is doing us a disservice.
Yeah, and maybe things will get better as it sounds like we'll now be recording committee meetings where a lot of that discussion happened where the public wasn't able to access.
They're able to come. They are able to come.
Right, but most people don't have every Wednesday to give up. I mean, all of us up here, we're all paid. We're all up here, we're all paid, and we're here every Wednesday, and that's great. And we have a group of folks out here that show up pretty regularly as well, but most people can't do that.
I would just like to say something that I would like to take what Kevin said very, very seriously, because I think that we do need to respect the division of power in our city and understand that while we have the purse strings and the power of legislation, we don't need to take it upon ourselves to micromanage the executive department of our city. And I think that we trust our mayor, we trust our chief of police to help protect the city, and they do that through monitoring policy to make sure that there aren't abuses happening. And I think that that's something very important for us to understand, that the more power we as a legislative body try to take from the executive branch, we are showing a level of distrust for those individuals, for those positions that have been placed in the city in order to be the executive part of this. And I think we have to be careful that we don't overstep our bounds as well. The very same people who want access to information about these things, there is an open door to the mayor. There is an open door to the chief. They can request time to go talk to them about those things as well. And so I think that's important for us to understand which lane we are in and how we stay in that lane and not encroach into what the executive branch has been charged with, what their role is in city government. And I think that is something that we need to think hard and long about, taking that responsibility on from them. Yes, Dan.
And I understand that this is going like a very long ways off topic, and I'm sorry. Thank you for allowing this. Just very quickly, technology is evolving at like an incredibly fast rate. I think that Flock is a lot of the concern around Flock is that the understanding of what it is capable of doing, which is unbelievably impressive. It is like an incredible tool. A lot of people didn't understand what it could do and how it was being used. And I think that it is a legislative priority for us to talk about, like, what is the future of surveillance in the city? And I think it's the same with any sort of technology. I do not want to ever talk about Flock again personally. It's a terrible conversation. My blood pressure is through the roof. But I do think it's a legislative item that we should continue to talk about as technology improves. It's starting off with Flock. There will be things in the future that we can't even imagine. So I just think it is, and not to step on Peter's toes here, I just think it's an important thing for us to, anytime there's an emerging technology, I think that we should discuss it further. And I don't think we're actually done with the conversation personally. I think we left off in a bad spot, and I don't want to have a fight, but I would like to reconcile some of that. So that would be my interest in it. But that's all I have to say.
Well, I think that we have beat that horse thoroughly. And I will call for us to adjourn.